Welcome to the podcast. I'm Dr. Debra Durst, and I am a double board certified physician that now specializes in anti aging and regenerative medicine. As a return viewer of the channel, I want to thank you for always listening and being loyal. If you are new to the channel, then I hope you like the content we're putting out. If you do, please hit the like and subscribe and leave us comments on anything you might want to hear more about because we are willing to deep dive into anything sexual wellness or wellness. So, welcome to the podcast, the RevMD podcast today, and we have a special guest with us, and it is Aaron Grunke from Survivor Fitness Foundation. So, we're so excited to have him. And say a few words and where you're from, like where Survivor Fitness started.
Sure. Well, thank you guys for having me. My name is Aaron Grunke. I'm with Survivor Fitness Foundation. We got started in Nashville, Tennessee, and we are now in Nashville, Knoxville, and Chattanooga. And we also have virtual programming for those that are outside of our major areas. I originally grew up in the Atlanta area, Marietta, which is a suburb of Atlanta, but we've lived in Knoxville for almost 7 years now.
So tell us a little bit about Survivor Fitness and the population you serve.
So Survivor Fitness, we serve all adult cancer survivors. So when you're done with treatment, we want to work with you and help you regain your health and your wellness through one-on-one personal training and nutritional guidance.
So I had never heard of Survivor Fitness until, we recently connected with you guys. And so again, it always makes me think of how something came to be. Being, I think, just a creator and interested in always creating. How did this happen for you? Because you're the founder of Survivor Fitness.
It was a world I never wanted to know anything about. At 21, I was diagnosed with an aggressive form of testicular cancer. I was a senior in college. I went from being a college kid to a cancer survivor right before my senior year at Auburn University started. I didn't know what I didn't know, of course. As a 21-year-old, you're still very much a kid. Even though you can legally drink and you can vote, you're still a kid. And that's when my journey into the cancer world started. I had multiple rounds of chemotherapy. I ended up having to have 3 surgeries in total. And it took me almost 2 years to finally hear the "you're all clear." Once I heard that, I really didn't know how much cancer took from me. It took a ton of mental focus from me. I was left depressed, angry, anxiety, all these emotions that I didn't even know were part of cancer. I thought getting well, doing the chemotherapy, doing the surgeries, listening to your doctor when they told you they'd see you in 4 months, I thought I was done and I'd go back to being a normal 23-year-old. And at that point in my life, I realized I didn't really relate to my peers like I thought I would. I was much older. I dealt with more than they had in certain aspects. Not that you want to win that contest, but I had just been through a lot.
Changes everything.
Perspective. Right?
Perspective. And so I knew I was not the same person. The first day I went in, I weighed 170 some pounds. I left 25 pounds heavier. I knew I was weak and tired, couldn't do the things I could do before that I really took for granted. And so I tried to get back in shape on my own. I was one of those, I played sports as a kid. I never really worried about physical fitness. I just did what I wanted. I played, I was active, all that. But when I got done with cancer, that wasn't there anymore. The stamina wasn't there. The fatigue was there. And when you get done with cancer, the way you get rid of fatigue is by working out. But at the same time, you don't have enough energy to get off the couch. So I tried for a few years to get back in shape. But again, I didn't know what I didn't know. I was very naive to how much physically cancer took from me. And so about 3 years later, I finally met with a trainer. And he was super encouraging. I was able to share my story. And we kind of came to the conclusion together of like, why wasn't this part of your checkout process? Why don't they tell you what to do during your cancer treatment? I was treated in the Atlanta area. We never discussed nutrition. We never really discussed working out. I'm very grateful that we focused on keeping me alive. I don't take for granted all that the physicians do when it comes to oncology, infusion, and everything they go through. So there's more and more survivors like me, but there needs to be another chapter.
The toolkit for
Yes.
post-care.
Yes, more of us are living, more of us are leaving. We still got to rebuild. You're not the same when you walk in as when you walk out. And so that's the why behind Survivor Fitness that we exist. We want to help people when they're done with treatment.
Okay.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing
I
your
know.
story.
It's such an inspiring story. Like, because again, now you've taken something that changed your life and now you are changing others'
Sure.
lives. And so from the word of diagnosis of cancer, that takes a huge hit, right? Everything in your life changes then.
Absolutely. You once you hear those words, you have cancer, you're not the same anymore. That innocence is lost. You're all of a sudden worried about, is this it? Is this the one? You cannot go back to hearing those words. So
Out of curiosity, how were you diagnosed? Was it screening? Was it a visit with the physician? Just out of pain? I mean, was it a symptom? Like, just out of curiosity, just for visitor, because you were very, very young to be diagnosed with a very
absolutely.
aggressive form.
I felt a lump, and it took me a couple of weeks to grasp around that. And then I went to the doctor. Like I said, you're very much still a kid at 21. I think the last time my files were still at my pediatrician. I was a very healthy kid, did all my physicals, did everything you need to do. But then I went off to college and, wasn't worried about it for a few years. So I started at my pediatrician. That was the days where you had to have a referral to pretty much do anything. Pediatrician referred me to the local hospital. I got the ultrasound. The tech came out. He couldn't tell us anything because that wasn't his area of expertise. But the way he looked at my dad and said, if I were y'all, I would get to a urologist very quickly. We knew, we didn't want to know, but we understood that my dad called his urologist. I got the 8:15 the next morning appointment. They did some blood work. They did another ultrasound on me, sent me home. I came back 3 days later when the tumor markers and everything, blood work came back, and it was very much, there was cancer present, and what are you doing this afternoon? They cleared a spot for me to have the initial surgery. And, when I woke up from surgery, it's cancer, but we think we got it all. We'll do surveillance. And they sent me home. But it was all a whirlwind of Thursday, I went to the doctor for the first time, and Monday I had surgery and I was diagnosed.
Yeah, immediately just everything centers
Starts happening.
around
Yes.
that diagnosis and treatment and evaluation. And so then you enter the treatment stage. So you have surgery, you're talking about different options for treatment. And at any point during even the early treatment, because I think when you're talking about the long term, plan for patients after, that short term plan too, do they talk to you at all about like how mentally challenging it is or how physically? You had no idea of that until
I had no idea.
cleared from surgery,
Sure.
cleared from cancer. All right.
I left that day, and in my mind, I had to call a couple of buddies to help me move a few heavy things back to my apartment in Auburn. That was it. It was basically, you can't lift more than 5 or 10 pounds until your stitches heal, and that was the discussion. There was
So no discussion on how to keep yourself strong or healthy through the process.
not through that. No.
And then when you get to the point where they finally say, again, you're cancer free, it's a yay, I can start doing all the things I used to do. And then that's when you realize that's not the case, but no prep or kind of a warning that this would be a big change in how you approach things physically and mentally.
The physicians everybody kept leaning on my age. It was, you're young, you'll bounce back, you got your whole life ahead of you. And that was that. Even when we switched over from surveillance to tumor markers were rising, we're going to have to do chemotherapy. It was more of, it's only 3 rounds. This will be quick. 2-3 months, you'll be good. Nothing to the extent of here's proper diet, here's nutrients that are going to be you're going to lose through the chemotherapy. Here's things you're going to need to do after. It was very much, we're going to do this on Monday and that's that.
Pre-cancer working out versus post-cancer working out. How different was that? What does that look like? Is it a different type of training process?
It was really eye-opening for me how much stamina was lost. Playing sports as a kid, thinking I'm going to go out and jog a mile or, go play with my friends, go play golf or ride a bike, any of the basic stuff. I mean, I remember I was so out of breath that I tried to tell myself that the treadmills were not calibrated correctly because I couldn't be this out of breath from attempting to jog that slow. So I would say post-cancer, it was really understanding what the new baseline was and how low that bar was to progress.
And again, nothing happens by luck, right? It's all like we end up in front of the right people at the right time. There's a connection, there's a reason for it. So you end up with a trainer that is now thinking with you and you're troubleshooting, just kind of like we did prior to the podcast. So you're brainstorming together as things are happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when you guys had kind of decided that this was a different approach that you were going to take, and probably something he really hadn't grasped either, how long did it take to start? Like, what was the process after that? Was that a reading? Was that an active working with the trainer, trying different things? What happened after that?
So the initial meeting, we did, body fat. We weighed, of course. So I got to understand what muscle I had and what body fat I had, what aerobic fitness was. He wrote down some heart rate zones. He explained to me what aerobic versus anaerobic is. He answered some questions from shortcomings of trying on my own. And I left that day with a little bit of a plan, like I want you trying to keep your heart rate at this rate try to get up to 30 minutes. So he and I would check in periodically. I could talk to him whenever, but that was like step one of like here my new baseline. And so through me starting to do some of those basic checkpoints with him and on my own was when I started to mentally get some clarity I hadn't had in a long time. Started to sleep better. I wasn't as scared, or the anxiety was less, because after a good workout, there isn't a lot of fight left in a good way. And so that was the real win. And then it was like, okay, why didn't anyone tell me this? I'm not alone. I consider myself, I played sports as a kid. I knew a little more than the average person on fitness, but I realized how little I knew. And it was like, if I wasn't young, I could have hurt myself trying on my own. But no one understood me until I went and found someone.
Gotcha.
Did nutrition start in immediately with that process too, or did that come a little bit later?
For me, that came a little bit later. It was more of, I noticed I was more hungry, and so trying to eat better started to incorporate there, but then really peeling that onion came a little bit later, because post chemo, you can have some food sensitivities you didn't have before. And I realized I was one of them. And so that's when I started to kind of peel the onion back of what had this chemotherapy done to me that I need to worry about or I need to look at.
And so it sounds like, again, a big nutritional focus, the fitness, and, psychologically what happens. And that's what you're bringing to patients in Survivor Fitness Foundation, right?
Correct.
And so tell us a little bit then from like your experience, how that next step of suddenly like, I'm not the only one going through these issues. I'm not the only one with these problems. How do I get people, through this quicker? Because it probably took you a while to struggle through on your own. So yes.
Yeah, if I could have had those 2.5, 3 years back of trying, ups, downs, trying on my own, that would have been ideal. You go from having all these doctor's appointments, you have your monthly schedule handed to you, you know exactly when you're doing your blood draws, exactly when you're doing infusion, to basically the music stops. So at that point, this would have been a folder of information I would have grasped on, because with Survivor Fitness, we have the opportunities, we have the experts, but you have to go do the work. And this would have been something that I could have channeled anxiety, depression, we'll call it what it is, anger that I'd been through this. It was not a why me, it was more of a mad that I had to deal with it and now I have to get on with my life. The gym is a perfect place to channel a lot of that emotion. I didn't have a place to channel it like I would love people to now. And so our goal now is when you're done with treatment that you're handed the folder I would have wanted and your doctor says, hey, you know, cancer's taking its toll, but we have the next step for you. And it's a physical fitness program, it's a nutrition program, it'll help your mental health, which we're launching a mental health program too. So now we have all of that waiting for you when you get through the hardest part.
How do patients find you? How did that happen? Like for the first time with you, where you were taking what you were learning and now distilling it down to, you know, give to others.
So in the very beginning, like any small business, it starts on the kitchen table with a legal pad and
Back of an envelope.
and-
I know.
napkin.
Yeah.
and a really bad sketch that turned into a business plan, such as week 1, week 3, week 10. You know, the very basics. Our very first participant was a wife of a coworker of my wife, had agreed to try us out, and the gym where I went to, they agreed to donate their services for the first participant. So we got going your classic startup way of we're pretty much building it as it's leaving the station. And she loved it. She had a great experience. She gained muscle. She lost fat. And we were like, okay, this has some legs because this is a cancer survivor where I would have wanted an intervention. And she had a great experience. And so once we saw that, we did word of mouth to find a few more. We polished our 12-week training program to get it to 2 times a week for 12 weeks. And then the trainer stepped in and said, you know, we need a third workout on their own so they learn to work out and they have confidence when they're done with us that can become part of their lifestyle. So we went through all that and then launched, you know, officially launched the business, got the website going. So now if someone's looking for us, survivorfitness.org, they apply online, we have intake, we call them, we understand where they're at personally, you know, the mental aspects, the physical aspects, what they've been through, and then we get them started.
Do you usually wait until they're done with treatment? Is that the best time to be entering Survivor Fitness?
We have plenty of participants that come through on maintenance therapy. We like you to be done with active chemotherapy. And then depending on your cancer, if you have any reconstructive surgery, we don't want to start and stop. We'd rather let you finish that last reconstructive surgery and then come see us. Of course, we'll talk to you during saying, you know, walking, doing those sorts of things will help your stamina, of course, but to get going in the program, we don't want any hard stops.
So part of your intake is really, you know, evaluating where that person is that's reaching out and then getting them through things that would interfere with them actually going to the intensive 12-week without interruption.
And we know there's always going to be a little interruption. You know, we're thrilled when people have a big vacation planned. Or,
Yeah.
I'm going to celebrate. Outstanding. Please go do that. Just let your trainer know, you know, hey, I'm going to be gone a week. We have plenty of people that take 12, 14 weeks to finish.
Wow. All right.
Now, if I read correctly, there's no charge for the program. Is that correct?
That is correct. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit. So we raise funds to pay for the participants to go through. We can't let medical bills be the excuse or the reason you can't do it. It's not an excuse, it's very valid. Or a change in employment status due to having to deal with treatment for 6 or 9 months. So we made the decision early on to become a nonprofit so we could help people when they're at their lowest. I could not have afforded my program at 24 if we didn't have a nonprofit part of the program.
Well, and so when you're talking nutrition part, and we can get back to that, so you're talking about you have a nutritionist, do you have multiple nutritionists, trainers, gyms?
Yeah,
Like, how would somebody know if they wanted to partner and to be a part of Survivor Fitness?
Absolutely. So we do have multiple gym locations. We have multiple dietitians. The dietitians do their work virtually for the most part. So we can have dietitians, and you know you don't have to come into town if you're an hour and a half away to have your nutritional consult. But we do have registered dietitians. We have multiple gym locations in Nashville, Knoxville, and Chattanooga. And that way, different parts of town, you may drive a long way for treatment, but you don't want to drive as long for working out. So we want to meet you where you're at the best we can. And then we find our gyms and speak, and we vet them, of course. First and foremost, we have to keep you safe.
Basically, with the gyms, for instance, or your locations, Knoxville, Chattanooga, and Nashville.
Mhm.
And if your plan is probably to expand as much as you can, but then you're talking about partnerships with other locations, right? It sounds
Correct.
like nutrition is virtual, but gyms too.
Gyms, we do have a virtual training component, so we have plenty of folks that will call us even outside of Tennessee and do the virtual training, but we'll have trainer, get on Zoom and train them, and we'll send them 3 pieces of equipment to their home. So they can train in the gym or in their garage, in their living room, whatever's most comfortable for them. If they're outside of where we do have physical locations, or if schedules don't permit to drive to a physical location.
Okay. And then you guys are just now adding a psychological or, mental health component to it. Yeah.
Yes, we are just now launching a mental health component to that. So through a partnership with Better Health, you'll have opportunities to go through mental health counseling.
And Better Health, is that an organization that provides, is it a virtual as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And that way we could centralize it and have them do the counseling, but not have to worry about location as well.
With the fitness, it's 2 times a week. I love that third idea at home because I think developing those habits along that 12-week period is important. Nutrition, what does that, the backbone of that look like?
So that varies from participant. Everybody will offer them 3 opportunities to meet with a nutritionist, but some want to meet more. Some will fall off after the 3, or they just need the check-in. They come to us and they're like, I'm already eating really healthy. I've talked to my doctor. They're A students already. They just want to bounce some ideas off. And then we'll have some that have looked on Google a couple of times. I was guilty of that. And then you have to be unraveled and
It's
say
a rabbit
no. This
hole,
is,
right?
yes.
Yeah. So I think that's the key to it is you providing the structure for it where they don't spend hours, of distracted time going down rabbit holes on Google trying to find answers. So
You can make Google say whatever you would like.
Well, of
Unfortunately,
course.
yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
I should eat this way, or I shouldn't eat this way, and it'll tell you.
Just
so
the way you
For every
pose
no,
things.
there's 5 yeses.
Yeah.
When it comes to, and then this, the mental health component, how many times, will that be a specific, have you guys planned that out?
Yeah, they're working on that right now to get the exact number of sessions that will entail. So.
What do you feel like made the biggest, if you were to pick one thing or 2 things, I would say, with the fitness in your journey, what were the 2 things that made the biggest difference for you?
Out of the gate, it was understanding where I was, and I would say the aerobic fitness, just getting that base back to be able to go lift weights the way I wanted to. Understanding I'm going to get there, but you got to do this today to get there.
So slow steps.
Yes.
In the positive direction.
Correct.
Slow,
Little
realistic,
wins.
yeah.
Little wins were real big for me going, okay, well, I got to 20 minutes today. That's good. So let's stick there this week. And then I started noticing the fatigue was leaving. There was some brain fog leaving. And it was like, I'm starting to feel like my old self. So that was the beginning. And then understanding the power of nutrition, understanding what foods were an issue. So really diving into how to fuel your body, not just eat because you're hungry.
And with nutrition, any key points that helped increase in protein or
Staying away from certain foods,
your
or
allergies.
dyes, or-
That,
Yes. So I would say starting to peel back if you have some certain foods or you're noticing, man, sometimes my stomach just hurts after that type of meal. For me, it was dairy. I grew up eating cheese, drinking milk, all that. And then all of a sudden after chemo, dairy felt like a brick in my stomach. And so starting to pull that out and seeing some inflammation go down and things like that was like, okay, there is a connection here that I did not have any formal training on. So just being able, if I was in a new participant's shoes, being able to say to a dietitian, hey, this is happening, and let them give an accurate answer would have been very beneficial.
Then it sounds like you have a huge support group too within the participants like not only with Survivor Fitness Foundation, but also with the survivors and the participants themselves,
That's
right?
what I was going to ask is even though you're just now adding the mental component, is there a support network? Is there opportunities for survivors to get together and talk and communicate and support each other?
Absolutely. So we've started doing group fitness classes here locally, and that has been well received because just being in the room with others that have had a similar journey, maybe different type of cancer, maybe different type of treatment, but you've heard those words and you're on the other side of it, and now you're trying to be the best version of yourself. So being in that room together for our participants has been a big win.
That's awesome. And probably friendships that develop that are
Yeah.
I'd say
lifelong.
that are
then.
lifelong.
Yeah.
And some
Yeah.
referrals along the way. I can think, we had a couple of young men that had the same type of cancer. Their doctor actually connected them way back when, and they both went through our program and had phenomenal results, and proud fathers today, etc. But just having their doctor think forward and say, you're early 30s, you guys should talk, and those things you can't fake that.
When I think that's a good segue into like how if a participant if somebody is diagnosed going through treatment or on the other side, like you said, how do they find you and get connected with
So
Survivor Fitness?
they'll find us online, survivorfitness.org, and that is where they'll apply. They can check out some testimonials, some videos. We have great content on our website, nutrition, everything they could want to kind of understand about the program is on our website, and then they can go ahead and apply online as well.
I saw that there's a form that you can click on and fill out.
Yes.
Do you ever have family members fill out forms for people? And do you accept it that way, or does it need to be the individual?
We don't know what happens on the other side of the computer. There's definitely been some phone calls along the way of my husband is going to do this along the way. And we love that. And there's also been the wins on the other side of husband or wife was a participant, and now the other one's come to the gym with them. So it becomes a family activity. We do need to speak to the participant. We'll have to have their doctor sign off, but again, we don't know who signed the form and who didn't. But it's all for the greater good. If it gets them working out, we're excited to have them, whether they consented day one or not, but we're just happy to have them.
When it's good then when it brings them together too to get them both into the gym. That's even a win-win.
Absolutely.
It's a huge support. What if businesses or trainers or nutritionists want to get involved in some
Or
way?
people just to volunteer?
Yeah.
Yep, just the website as well. We have a contact form there, and then our basic email is info@survivorfitness.org, and we're always open to talk, and we want to learn from you all and see if there's a way to help.
And how many years now have you been developing and growing Survivor Fitness?
So we got started in 2013. My wife and I were doing this outside of our full-time jobs. And then in 2018, she stepped into the role of executive director. So we kind of like to say Survivor Fitness 1.0, and then 2.0 is when we revamped and got going. But we've been around since 2013.
So a side hustle, then jump all in,
Yeah, absolutely.
and with both feet, yeah. So that's awesome though. So it's grown significantly, and again, it's just an inspiring story, Erin, to hear, because you basically took something in a struggle that you were going through, and now are helping others, and I think that's what it's about. Like it happens for a reason.
Sure.
And this is the reason.
Yeah, I wanted to take a rough situation, turn something positive out of it.
Yeah.
And I don't want anyone to feel alone like I did. So if we can tell our story and connect the dots for people in a constructive way, that's all that matters.
And
Well,
some
what you
of
guys are doing is amazing.
yeah,
It truly is.
and I think that like the stories when you hear individual stories, like they're inspiring in and of themselves. So I'm sure that drives what you're doing.
Yes,
You and your
everybody's a little different, but the stories are, they give you chill bumps. We've had people that have never worked out before and want to be stronger when they turn 60, and then all of a sudden they're able to chase their grandkids and do things that they didn't think were possible post cancer. And then we have ex-D1 athletes that we've got to basically grab by the collar and say, we'll get you back, but let's build to it. So everybody has their own journey, but them putting in the work for 12 weeks is a huge commitment, but there's a huge reward for them at the end, and they're the heroes.
Is there a way that we can maybe get the word out there outside of like even just a podcast, like to hemonc docs? I would think that that would be a primary way of doing it, or primary care doctors. Like, is there
So that's
something?
hematology is hema.
Yes,
is
yes, sorry.
oncology, right?
Do you have, things that we could pass, or assist in doing, to get the word out there too?
Absolutely. We have plenty of brochures, plenty of marketing materials. We're always up for a conversation to tell our story, because patients can come in 2-3 years later and go, I just don't feel like myself. And then we'd love to be that resource. Or, hey, you're going through cancer, but when you're done, you ought to take a look at this program. And it just takes a little nudge, and all of a sudden the light bulb goes off. So
All
we would love any and all help spreading the word.
Awesome.
We're here to help.
That's awesome. Well, and thank you so much for being on today. It is like an inspiration hearing the story and hearing about Survivor Fitness. And again, I would love for any of our listeners to, like, subscribe, comment, go to the website and
Share this
connect.
podcast.
Yes, share, connect, get the word out there as much as you can. So again, thank you for spending the afternoon with us, and let us know anything that you would like answered, because Erin can answer any questions that you have about it and share with friends. And we're willing to deep dive into anything wellness or inspiring stories or new businesses, and or connecting patients with the right resources. So
Well,
thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you all. This has been awesome. We appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.